Yo, what's up, everybody? Here on Jay Plays Keys, I'm Jonathan, or as this thing is probably calling me John on here. I wanted to come and chat with everybody for a minute. I haven't been on Jay Plays Keys as much lately, but I am back. It's a crazy couple of months. So hopefully, a couple of you guys hop in and join for this live. Put my notes here on my phone so I can have some stuff to talk about today. Pretty much all I want to talk about today is musicians as leaders. And I want to talk about what are the things that we can do as musicians to really be better leaders in our organization, or even if you're part of a small band or small group, to be a good leader in that group as well. That's really what's on my mind right now as we, leave the holidays, get back into 2021. We're about to be in a place where, a lot of people are going to start going back to the physical church. A lot of people are going to be you might be finding a new place to worship or worshiping in a different way. But, at the end of the day, we still have to be leaders where we are, right? So I want to just chat about that. So I jotted down a couple of notes on how musicians can exhibit leadership, how we can be leaders in our organization. And my very first point here is punctuality, being on time. That is probably one of the biggest complaints that we see about musicians, especially in church, is that we're not on time. We show up on our own time. We don't always respect. If service starts at 10, we need to be there at 10, preferably like 9:45, be in place. And being that music is the thing that goes in front of the entire experience, whether it's a church service, whether it's a social gathering, a wedding, no matter what event you're going to that has, a public event, music is probably the thing that brings people's attention to say, hey, we're starting, or hey, we're ending, or music is the thing that, is in between activities where there's a little dead spot, music plays, right? So it's really important that we as musicians are in place on time when we need to be there, because when you're on time and you're punctual, like you start to get a lot of credibility. People will see you as, a professional, and it's regardless of how well you play, right? It's a separate issue because a lot of times, sometimes we musicians, if we get to a certain skill level, then it's like, oh, I don't even have to show up. I don't even have to be at practice. Like practice, Allen Iverson, right? You talk about practice, but we do need to be at practice, right? We need to be there and be in place. And I think one thing about being punctual sometimes is that in our organizations, and I've been part of a lot of times nothing starts on time, right? The service doesn't start on time. The rehearsals don't start on time. Prayer doesn't start on time. Nothing starts on time because a lot of folks, we're just not that focused on being on time. However, even if you're in a situation like that, I think it's important that as the musician, if you're the musician, you be in place. You be on time. You be at your piano or drums or guitar, whatever you're playing, that we be in place. And when we're in place on time, that will help others feel like, okay, I need to be taking this serious and I need to be on time. You know, I think the one thing that I've always done, and I'm looking down at my notes here, one thing I've always done is even if, service is supposed to start at say 11 and they're still running around getting things ready, by the time, by the time it's supposed to be started, I will, man, there's a lot of noise there. I will be at the keyboard and I'll start playing because I'm in place doing what I'm supposed to do. Even if they're still getting ready for the service, choir still getting ready, pastor still getting ready. I'll be at the piano 5 minutes before church starts, 10 minutes before church starts, just playing songs, setting the atmosphere, getting everything ready. And this is particularly important if you're getting paid to play the piano. So some musicians get paid, some don't. But if you're getting paid, I think it's important because you're kind of running your own little business, right? You don't just show up whenever, the organization is ready. You show up at the time that you agreed to show up. Even if nobody is there, even if they're not ready, I'm going to be there at 10:30 because everyone knows whenever they hire Jonathan to be their musician, when they invite me to come in there, I'm going to be where I'm supposed to be. And what you'll find is over time, because you're punctual, because you're on time, and you take it serious, other people will start being on time. And I found that even with rehearsals, is that if you are new to a place or you've been there for a while and there's a culture where rehearsal doesn't start, it's kind of lackadaisical. If you as a musician, like rehearsal starts at 6:30, you start playing that warm up song. You start getting to rehearsal. If you start with prayer, you start praying right there. Whether there's four people just talking or anything, you just start doing what you got to do right there, and don't worry about who's doing what, who's watching. And over a couple of weeks, people will start snapping to the thing that you were trying to set up. People will start being on time. People will start paying attention. There won't be a lot of just lollygagging and things like that. And you can actually start respecting each other's time because you're on time. So that's the first thing I think musicians as leaders is being on time. That's a big thing. It's something that a lot of us just we I know you've been there in cultures where it's just not a big thing to be on time. And so hopefully going into 2021, as we're all coming back to church, as we're all getting back into the swing, we'll learn that we're not going to take this church service thing for granted, right? Because we thought it's something that we're always going to be able to do. It's something that we kind of do it here and there, kind of get kind of lax about it. But who knows when it's the last time we're going to be able to go to church, right? We haven't been doing this for like it's been what 9, 10 months for some people. And so hopefully that alone will help you feel like, you know what, every time I get a chance to go to church, I want to be on time. Every time I get a chance to play and to be part of a worship service, I want to be on time, right? Because we just don't know when it's going to be the last time. So number one, musicians as leaders, what character traits make you a good leader as a musician? Being on time. Number two, character trait about what will make a musician a good leader is what I call people over performance, right? People over performance. That's something that should probably be number one. But what I mean by that is it's more important that you develop a relationship with your church, your ministers, your leaders, your community. That's more important than how well you can play and how many chords and runs and progressions you know. Because part of being a leader, you have to get people to want to get behind you. You have to get people to want to follow the program that you're trying to execute as a leader, right? And so if you're a musician and you want to suggest new songs, or you think that, hey, I think the choir, we should go participate in this activity. Or you say, hey, I would like if we all, we don't dress the same. Maybe we should all wear black and white on Sundays or something like that. When you as a musician trying to make the music better, people may or may not respect you based on the relationship that you built with them. Because I've seen a lot of us musicians, and I, myself included, right? Once we start feeling like we can play really good, or we feel like someone's depending on us and things like that, we think that gives us the right to, speak any kind of way, or that gives us the right to, demand things of the people that are working and serving with us, right? Like, hey, if you guys don't get with the program, you're not getting with the program like me. I'm just going to leave you in the dust. Or, hey, I'm going to play the song the way I want to play it, and you guys just need to learn how to sing it the way I'm playing it. That I understand where that's coming from because sometimes you just got to get things done, and you have to like come in with an energy to make something happen. But when I talk about people over performance, you have to be willing to work with the choir that you're working with. You have to be willing to work with the pastoral staff and the deacon board and not always have to have something your way, and show them that you're somebody that's going to work with them and you want the best for everybody that's involved, not just what's going to show me, show everyone how good I can play. Like I say, musicians as leaders, it's people over the performance. Like I'd rather, and I know a lot of pastors I've worked with, you'd rather have a musician that can love your flock, that can treat everyone like family, that can be respectful, that can be on time. You'd rather have that musician than a person that lacks those character traits, but they played with at TD Jake's church, or they played with such and such a band, right? You'd rather have someone that's going to come in and build that community you're trying to build than someone who's excellent at their craft. Now, that's not to say we don't need to be excellent. We do need to be excellent. That's going to be part of my third tip that I talk about. But what I'm talking about right now is making sure you value those relationships you're building in your organization just as much as you value the performance that you put on Sunday, Wednesdays, whatever day that might be, Saturday. So people are performing, because that's going to be what helps you be a good leader. If people do not want to follow you, if people do not want to get with your program, there's no way you can lead, even if you're right. Right? That's something I ran into before. Like, I've been playing music in churches for 15, oh man, almost 17 years now, right? And at the beginning, when I was a teenager, right, I'm like, hey, I'm right. I know the right thing to do. I know what we need to do. Everybody needs to listen to me because I'm right. Well, if you just showed up and these people have been going to church together for 30 years, and you're just showing up telling them, I'm right, do what I say do, that's not going to work, right? You have to come in, especially if you're new to an organization, you got to come in, you got to get with their program, show them that you're willing to invest time in helping everyone be successful before you can come in and try to like turn everything around, before you can come and change rehearsal time from 8 o'clock, to 10:15 because you don't want to wake up. Some folks they've been rehearsing at 8 o'clock on Saturday, since the '90s, right? And you got to let people know that you value what they're bringing to the table. And before you try to say, hey, I don't think we should wear black and white. I think we should start wearing red now. That sometimes that can be a big deal, right? And if you've invested in the relationships and people trust you and they want to work with you, then it'll be easier for you to get those things done that you think will help the choir be better. Um, People over performance. Let's talk about working with your deacon board or your pastoral staff as well. Um, this is something, again, I think you develop this knowledge about working with so many churches because everybody does it differently. A denominational church has has probably more structure, more rigidness than like your non-denominational church that was started 5 years ago. But no matter where you find yourself, you got to figure out, how do these people make decisions, and what do they care about, and how can the ideas I'm trying to bring help them make their decision. And like when I say things like, if you think that the choir should take part in this community event, we should go sing for this conference or something like that. Or you think that, as a musician, you think you should start introducing some more contemporary music versus a lot of the traditional hymns, or vice versa. You want to add some hymns to a church that used to doing traditional things. These are things that you would talk to your pastor or your deacon board or your staff. And from a leadership perspective, that's going to be something that they're going to have to think about and say, man, I don't know. And so how do you exhibit leadership in that situation? Well, when you're trying to get the church leadership to do something different in the music department, again, you can't come at it with, hey, this is what I play. This is all I know how to play. If you want to have me, you got to play the music that I want to play. That's not going to work. You got to try to understand, what is the pastor's vision for 2021, and how is this type of music going to help him with his vision? Hey, what are you planning to preach on Sunday, or do you have a list of kind of the topics that you want to preach this month? Oh, here are some songs. They're not hymns, they're not traditional, but here are some songs that kind of go with the message that you're planning to bring up on the third Sunday of January. Would you mind taking a listen, or maybe we can listen to it together and listen to the words and see if that's something that kind of resonates with you. That type of negotiation, that kind of discussion, will help you get what you want, which is to play a certain type of music. That type of discussion will help you get it more than, hey, I like this. This is the new thing from Kirk Franklin. You got to play it. Some people, it's not going to work, right? But again, the way you have that conversation, what I just did in my analogy, I understood what the pastor wanted to preach, what his vision was for 2021, and my suggestion aligned with what he wanted to do for his flock that year, right? It had nothing to do with me. I don't even have to say, this is what Jonathan wants to play. I think we should play all songs by Tamela Mann on Sunday. I don't have to say that. All I have to say is, what are you trying to accomplish? Hey, here's some suggestions that help you get what you want. And in that case, it's a win-win situation. And it doesn't have to be that push-pull deal, right? And I think particularly if you're working with deacon boards, and the purpose of the deacon board really is to be that solid foundation so the church doesn't get pulled by every whim of doctrine that comes, right? These deacons probably been together for decades. And so you don't get to just come in to church and change what they're doing really fast, right? And so when you're working with a board like that, you have to really, really show that you understand what is important to them as a church, right? What is important to them as an organization before you bring up what you want. And you do that over time by whenever they ask you something, you respond professionally. You respond with a heart of love versus defensive and taking everything offensively because then they won't listen to you, right? You should be teachable and open variety experience that can work. Yeah. So well, yeah, what Thomas just said, knowing your pastor's vision, right? Here's right here. Knowing your pastor's vision, that's really big if you're going to be a musician. You got to know the vision. And a lot of us, we start thinking like we're just musicians, right? And all I do is play. I said that before when I was like, 18, 19. Like, hey, I just play. I just play. You tell me what to play, I play. Well, that's one way, right? But really, you understand like as a musician, you're at like I've said before, you're at the church almost as much as a pastor, right? Because you got to be at every single event, you got to be there for rehearsals and all this kind of stuff. So you are really more integral to the church than you might think because you're just there so much, and everything that happens at the church probably has some musical components. So if you take the attitude like, oh, I just play, and you're not trying to think about the vision of the church, you're not trying to think about the needs of the community, you're not trying to think about how your music can help bring people along, you're missing a huge opportunity, right? And so yeah, absolutely, Thomas, when you say be teachable, that's a big deal because even though someone might not know more about music than you do, but the pastor probably knows more about his people's personalities than you do, and so he might be able to let you know while you're talking, oh, this is why so and so is nervous about singing that song, or this is why so and so always wants to sing this song and won't do anything else. And then you understand that, and then you can help make your rehearsals go better and things like that. It's a lot more complex than just showing up and playing, right? So yeah, so number two, like I said, people over performance. Focus on that relationship that you're having with the people you work with versus just how well you perform. Number three tip that I have for musicians being leaders, and remember, number one was being on time, being punctual, right? That's number one. That's the foundation. Number two tip was people over performance, and my number three tip here is forgot my number three tip. Oh, here we go. Do the right thing. This is something that kind of can sound like it's a no duh type deal, but like as musicians, we have to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Why? Because a lot of times you're in the front of the church, and even if you don't have a title like minister of music or something like that, I've always tried to shy away from minister of music title. Even if you don't have a title, you are a leader because you're up there, you're visible, you're being seen, right? And if you think about, from the Bible perspective, that was the reason why it was such a big deal for Lucifer, right, to turn his back on the Lord, because that was the musician had such a visible role. You're supposed to always be seen as doing the right thing, being above reproach, blah blah blah, right? And you see it again in the Old Testament where the musicians, when you're marching around Jericho, the musicians went first, right? And then all your fighters and all this kind of stuff. The musicians were going first, leading people into battle. And so, whether you're a minister or whatever we're calling ourselves these days, if you're just a piano player and you're 18 years old, like I was, right, you are a leader in the church. And we always have to be setting a good example because folks are looking at us, right? And, it could be kids, like, because again, I was a young musician. I started when I was like 15. I think as soon as I was able to drive, right, I was ready to go and play at church. And you got kids looking at you like, wow, he's only 2 or 3 years older than me. I want to be like him. I don't know a lot of people wanted to be like me, but some of y'all musicians are cool and people want to be like you. Nobody want to be like me. I was a nerd. But people are looking at you and they're saying, "Oh man, he can play really well." Or, "Oh man, like he's already a musician at church. I'm still trying to learn how to play chopsticks." People are watching, right? And adults are looking at you, right? They're like, "Is this the type of musician that the type of person I want around my children during a children's rehearsal? Are you setting a good example for my kids? Is this the type of person that I want to be at my Easter event or whatever. People are watching you. So more than anyone else, really in a church besides the pastor and people, right? You have to be doing the right thing. What do I mean by doing the right thing? Doing the right thing means, again, showing up on time. I already talked about that. The right thing is being attentive during the service, right? Because a lot of times I know we musicians, we might check out between, the sermonic selection and then altar call. We kind of check out because, then they're doing announcements, then they're doing, preachers preaching, and they might do offering. That don't really have nothing to do with music. I'm kind of going to check out. But we can't do that, right? We got to do the right thing. We got to always be kind of with the spirit of what's going on in the church service. And so we don't check out. The right thing to do is either to stay at your piano or go sit with your family or whatever, but you're always paying attention. You're not going to, what I see a lot of times, you just play, you get done playing, then you're out of there. You're going to be outside, getting some Burger King or something like that. I say Burger King because that's where I used to do. I used to go to Burger King. That wasn't the right thing to do. And I didn't realize that until a little later that I wasn't setting a good example, right? I need to be in church just like anybody else, right? I think the other thing is doing the right thing is, even on our social media, even on, when we're at our job and things like that, a lot of times being a musician, especially in a smaller town, right? People know who you are and they know, that you're a musician at this church. And, we're supposed to be above reproach. We're not supposed to bring any sort of blemish on the ministry or whatever. So we can't be out there, talking any kind of way on our job, being mean, being disrespectful, being rude, and then people are like, oh, aren't you that musician that plays at St. John First Baptist, or whatever? Like you don't want that. We always got to be doing the right thing. And so, like I said, when you had the attitude like, oh, I just play, all I do, I just play, kind of shrug your shoulder, I just play. That's not really true. We don't just play. You're representing the ministry. And so doing the right thing, that's something that being a leader as a musician, that can really set you up as someone who's known as a good leader and a good musician. Number 4 and final tip that I have here is, have a backbone. Remember, number 1, be on time. Number 2, people over performance. Number 3, do the right thing. Number 4, have a backbone. What do I mean by that? Like sometimes as a leader, you have to keep the group from doing something that it does not realize will not yield good fruit, right? And so sometimes you have to know because you've been working with this choir so long that maybe at this conference we should not sing so and so's favorite song because we're not ready, or because I'm pretty sure the leader of that song is not going to show up. They always have excuses. They're not going to show up. Let's not bank on that. Or because, I don't really know how to do that song very well. It's not going to be a good representation of our church. You have to kind of have a backbone to be able to say, like, even though we're all excited about this thing, hey, I don't think this is what we should do. Here's an alternative. That takes a lot, right? Because it can be easy to just say, oh, I'm just going to go with the flow, go along to get along. But that might not be the right thing because you want everyone to be successful. And sometimes as a musician, it's going to be successful even if the rest of the choir doesn't, right? A lot of times we hear new songs and I'll be in rehearsal and someone's like, oh, here's a new song. Play this. Let's do this. And just by listening to the song, I'm like, it's on the radio, but it's not really a choir song. You can't sing it as a choir, or you can't sing it without like a mixing board and all this kind of stuff. Like you have to say, hey, that's a great suggestion. Maybe we'll do it on on youth night or something like that. But for Sunday, we're not going to do that kind of song. You got to have a backbone to be able to stand up and say that type of stuff. The other thing is like having a backbone is when it's time to rehearse and get things done. You have to be the person that's there to kind of keep everybody on track as a musician, even if you're not the minister of music, right? As a musician, you have to be there and be ready to say, hey, it's time to work. We got 30 minutes, we got 40 minutes, whatever. Let's get this done. Don't let everybody just, move and do everything we want to do. Otherwise, we'll stretch this half-hour activity out over an hour. Like as a musician, if you're going to be a leader, you have to be able to say, hey, we can all congregate and have fun at 7, but between 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock p.m., we're doing rehearsal, right? And by doing that, you're really showing everybody that, hey, I care about your time just as much as I care about my time. And and you're also showing your leaders, like your pastor, your ministers, that you're not going to be in there, wasting your time. You're going to be a professional. You're going to have everything together, and you're going to be ready to produce a good uh, Sunday service. Because one thing I always see is that sometimes pastors, they show up during rehearsal and they like walk around because they're listening to see how things are going, right? And they're like, "Ooh, I don't know if that sounds too good what y'all are doing." And if you're in there and there's just all this lollygagging going on, you're not taking it serious. How does that make the minister feel that has to preach on Sunday and knowing that they're not going to have a good high tempo spirit when they have to get up and preach? That's not really good, right? So as a musician, you got to have a backbone and say, hey, let's take this serious, everybody. Let's get this song right. Let's choose songs that are really going to uplift and things like that. And that might not be the most fun thing to do in the moment, but it's our job to really get ready to set the atmosphere for the preaching or whatever is going to happen on Sunday, right? So I think that that's something that, again, that I didn't get, when I was playing like 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. I'm just like, hey, I just play. You tell me what song to play, I play it, you sing it. That's only part of the deal. Like the other part is making sure that this thing is done right, because we should have excellence, and in order to have excellence, we have to have focus. We have to have time where we're bringing the group together to accomplish a mission, accomplish a goal. And really, I think that doing that helps set people up for the rest of the days of the week, even outside of Sunday, outside of rehearsal. Like doing something excellent, it just makes you feel good when you leave. That hey, we did 4 songs today, and those songs were excellent. Thanks, Simon. I appreciate that. We did 4 songs today, and those songs were excellent, and we're ready to rock on Sunday. We learned a new song today, and we went from not knowing the song to having 3-part harmony, and everything's good. And when you're the musician, you help make that happen, and you didn't just go in one week and just mail it in. That makes you feel good, and that makes everybody else feel good, even if they don't tell you, right? A lot of us, we need success, and success really is a lot of small wins that happen throughout each day, each week, that make you, have this positive feeling and make you kind of more confident as you go throughout your day and throughout your weeks. And so by rehearsal being a time where people can be successful, where people can come in and feel like they accomplished something, that does something for their psyche when they go home or when they go to work the next day. And so as a musician, you have to be mindful of that. And like I said, it might not be the most popular thing, but this is what's best for everyone that's involved, is that we do this and we do an excellent, excellent job. So I got a couple more remarks that I'm going to make, but if anyone has questions or wants to comment or anything like that, I invite you to do that now. I'm open to have a discussion. What are things that you think would make a musician a great leader in the church? Or are musicians even leaders? Should we just, like I said, should we just play? And, should we leave the leadership up to, others that have the titles? I don't know. But yeah, so that's just what I'm talking about today. And I think the biggest thing is just a mindset shift between, being a musician and being a leader, is that like when you walk in, it's not really about playing. Like you got to have a baseline level of skill, right? You got to be able to play Amazing Grace. You got to be able to play whatever songs you're supposed to play. But then once you get that, there's like a higher level of thought you got to be having whenever you sit down at church and say, oh man, this is something that I'm really doing. Like I'm providing leadership. I'm providing a service. I'm serving my community. I'm ushering people into worship. And that will make you think of yourself more, as a leader and not just a person who plays, right? Everybody that's in front of that church is a leader, no matter what you're doing. If you're just lighting the candles, right, at the AME church, we light the candles. If you're just lighting candles, you're a leader, right? People are watching you. People are taking your example, right? If you're just going to go up there and do a prayer, you're a leader. People are, you're setting an example. And so, I think that being on time, thing that I talked about first, that's probably the biggest thing. It's the easiest to accomplish, right? Being on time is a lot easier than showing up and meeting a new deacon board and getting them to like you. you know, Being on time is a lot easier than, when I say like doing the right thing, it's a lot easier than showing up and getting a choir or a praise team that's used to doing things one way and getting them to do things another way. Just showing up on time. That's just getting in our car, riding, and going to church. And they say, well, oh, I gotta work or whatever. I think that being on time, I mean, a leader and having a backbone, all this stuff works together, right? So if you know you can't make it, to rehearsal at a certain time, then you need to make that clear, to whoever you're talking to, your minister of music or your pastor, deacon board, say, hey, I know rehearsal starts at 6:30. I can commit to being there at 6:45 every day. Can you guys get started with some warm ups or get started with prayer before I show up? And I'll show up at 6:45. And so, I got to work or whatever. I can't get off work. That's not really the best excuse because that's kind of like putting the blame on something else. I think you find what can you commit to, and is this something you can commit to? Because if it's something that you're not going to be able to be on time and be successful and be a leader, then you might have to pass up that opportunity and find somewhere else to serve. Because if we can't be on time, that kind of undergirds everything else. Especially if it's not a church that you grew up in and people know you. If you're coming into a new place, like how are you going to build credibility and have people trust you if you can't show up on time, right? Or if you can't, get to rehearsal or get to church on time. So I think being punctual is a big thing, and that's no matter what instrument you play, right? I'm a piano player, but even if you play bass, if you play one of the secondary instruments or whatever, still be on time, because as a piano player, I'm looking for my bass player, right? I'm looking for my drummer, to it makes me feel good when we're all kind of playing and we're in sync together. And so you're no less important than the guy playing the piano or the lady or man that's singing. Like you're just as important no matter what you play. If you play the what you call the bongos, you play the bongos. Be there on time. Like come give us that rhythm that we need. And so yeah, I've enjoyed that. So Jay plays keys. I haven't been able to make a lot of any new videos about songs or whatever. But if you got songs you want to sing, put them in the comments and that you want to learn. Any songs you want to learn, put them in the comments. And I'll try to get back to it. I'm kind of resetting the way I do things here, Jay Plays Keys. But I really enjoy doing these lives and talking a little bit because being a musician is more than just learning how to play songs. And that's kind of what I talked about today. It's really, learning how to be a good contributor to the community as well. So, guys, thanks for joining me. Those that did, I will be back next week, probably with another live. I might even have a tutorial that comes out between now and then. So stay in touch. If you have not, please go ahead and subscribe. Give the video a thumbs up so that you'll be notified whenever I come out with a new video on Jay Plays Keys. Until then, practice hard, be blessed, and looking forward to a great 2021. See ya.